Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Jason Miller is CEO of social media platform GETTR, Newsmax contributor, and former senior advisor to Donald Trump. He is active in a fight against censorship and the monopoly that Silicon Valley has. A conversation with Jason is brought to you by Elevate Farms. Elevate Farms is a technology and IP-based indoor farm that produces traditional farm-grown equivalent products at wholesale market price with a global footprint. Go to elevate.farm for more information. Jason, thanks for joining me. How are you today, young man?
I'm doing fantastic. Great to be back with you. And we're very excited. Got some good things going on with GETTR. And the world's a crazy place. I'm glad to be able to join you and chat about it.
Yeah, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. The first thing I think that's on everybody's mind the last 24 hours is Governor Cuomo resigning. I want to play this video of his from when he announced his resignation, stating his reasoning. I'm not sure a lot of people believe it, so I want to play it and get your thoughts on it. Can we go ahead with that?
And wasting energy on distractions is the last thing that state government should be doing. And I cannot be the cause of that. New York tough means New York loving. And I love New York. And I love you. And everything I have ever done has been motivated by that love. And I would never want to be unhelpful in any way. And I think that given the circumstances, the best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing. And therefore, that's what I'll do. Because I work for you. And doing the right thing is doing the right thing for you. Because as we say, it's not about me, it's about we. Kathy Hochul, my lieutenant governor, is smart and competent. This transition must be seamless.
Jason, he loves you. I think he's done stuff that's objectively bad no matter what side you're on. The nursing homes, for example. I don't agree with his vaccine verbiage where he tells people he's going to basically bust in their doors and force them. Do you believe that he just loves the city so much that he wants to step down? Or are you buying what this speech was all about? He's got an Emmy, Jason.
He does, and I think he might have an Oscar to add to his mantle now. Look, if you believe one single word that Andrew Cuomo said in that clip that you played, then I have some swampland in Calgary to sell you. Because, folks, it is not happening. There was no road to Damascus conversion. He did not wake up and magically see the light and say, oh, I just love people, and I just want to make sure what's best for New York State. Here's what happened. The folks in Albany went to him and said, we have the votes. You're going to get bounced. You can either walk out on your feet or walk out, politically speaking, in a pine box. And that's what they went to him and told him and said, you got to go. The votes are there. Nobody's going to go and defend you. No one's going to rally around you. But I do want to say one thing here with regard to Andrew Cuomo. And I think he did a terrible job as governor. I'd say anyone who lost a family member in one of these nursing homes would attest to that. I think anyone who lost a business in the state of New York would attest to his terrible handling of COVID. Any kid who lost an entire year of school, I think would point to Governor Cuomo as being a disaster. That being said, look, you live by the woke, you die by the woke. If you live by virtue signaling, then you die by virtue signaling. I'm not saying that Andrew Cuomo is not a jerk or that some of his behavior sounds like was inappropriate. There was no real due process. There was nothing that went through this. They basically said, you got to go. And he went because that's how it works in this new environment. And so, again, I'm not going to again defend Andrew Cuomo in one way or another. But I'm going to say that when you spend all your time virtue signaling, watch out because the pendulum swings back.
So you weren't convinced by his "I kiss everyone." No, when the day he resigned, I believe it was just yesterday. The talking point put out was that he announced this to distract from the infrastructure bill. So he announced it on purpose. Do you think that could be the case, or is there something else? Is it just But if he knows he's going down and he can do it on any day, is there some merit to that?
I would be really surprised if that was the case, because keep in mind, Cuomo, he'll go. I don't know what he'll do. Is he'll do something to try to repair his image? Maybe he'll, build some huts somewhere, or go try to save the whales or something like that, and then come back. He's still going to want these relationships with the Democratic Party. He's going to go and try to monetize this lifetime, this whole family lineage of connections, and so he wouldn't do it, I don't think, to intentionally. And keep in mind also that some of these votes were happening in the middle of the night. I think what happened was he was at a place that he thought was untenable, and the folks in Albany, like I said, they went to him and said, the votes are there, you got to go. And it was just at a point where they didn't think they could hold the dam anymore before it burst. And so, but it was a fascinating press conference. Just take a moment here as someone who's been through a number of fascinating press conferences with a number of political figures over my career. And, they spent all morning with Cuomo's lawyer essentially bashing the accusers, saying that, hey, you're going to get outed, you're going to get publicly shamed, we're going to make your life very difficult for you. Then Cuomo goes and delivers his press conference, which, the first 20 minutes of it very much sounded like he was going to dig in and fight. And then he says, so I don't want to be a distraction anymore. I'm going to go ahead and leave. And by the way, I did great things for COVID, LGBTQ community, e pluribus unum. He threw out some random, e pluribus unum was one. He threw out a couple other just random phrases. It was literally like a political resignation Mad Libs with just a random bunch of garbage thrown in there. And then he's like, hey, 14 days. I'll see you guys around. So it was one of the more bizarre resignations that I've seen. But again, Cuomo has no soul. I mean, he's very much the only person who's, I think probably more narcissistic than him is probably his little brother, Fredo. I'm not sure if that's the name that was on his confirmation, Fredo Cuomo, but that's how he's affectionately known, Chris Cuomo from the CNN Communist News Network. But Fredo might be the only person more narcissistic than his brother. But look, the only reason why he's leaving is because they said, we have the votes and you got to go.
Jason, I was reading up on the replacement there, Kathy Hochul. I think that's how you pronounce it, Hochul. She was being criticized and stuff that I was reading from leftist sources for opposing driver's licenses for illegal immigrants, and that was in 2014. And my thinking is 2014 in politics is 100 years. I don't think there's any way that a Democrat who is second in command to Cuomo comes in and does stuff like that. Do you think anything is going to actually change for, I don't know what our opinion would be, for the better?
No, I don't think so. And keep in mind, I think that one of the things that's kind of being swept under the rug a little bit is the fact that Hochul was not more vocal with regard to Andrew Cuomo during all of this mess that was going on. And I think that Albany, both the fellow politicians, but then also with regard to the media, I think they're going to be paying a lot of attention. And look, I would not rule out the state attorney general, Letitia James. I would not rule out her jumping in saying, I'm making the play for governor. I mean, she's the big powerhouse right now. And if I were her, I would definitely jump in. No one knows who the lieutenant governor is. So I think it's going to be a very bumpy road if Hochul does decide to go and run and carry on.
Yeah, I don't see too much changing from within them if they just put in his second in command. I also wanted to talk to you about Ted Cruz. He's putting in bans on mandates, or he wants to, kind of like Gavin Newsom did in Florida. So I want to get his clip out there, and I want to get your thoughts on that and whether or not you think it's going to go through. Go ahead, please, Justin.
Time of crisis, people's character is revealed, and the character of Democrats, whether it is Joe Biden, whether it is Andrew Cuomo, whether it is Bill de Blasio, whether it is Gavin Newsom, the character from their perspective, they do not respect your liberty. They do not respect your right to make your choices about your health care, about your children, about your lives. My view is very simple. There should be no mandates, zero concerning COVID. That means no mask mandates, regardless of your vaccination status. That means no vaccine mandates. That means no vaccine passports. And I've introduced legislation, a bill to ban vaccine passports. This week, I'm introducing a bill to ban vaccine mandates. And this week, I'm introducing a bill to end mask mandates. Now, that doesn't mean, as the media likes to characterize, that I'm opposed to vaccines. I actually think vaccines are terrific. I've taken the vaccine. My family's taken the vaccine.
Now, this is really difficult for me to parse through, I think, because on one hand, I don't agree with mask mandates or vaccine mandates, but on the other hand, I kind of lean towards thinking that if this was a different issue, an issue that I supported, if I was for masks, for example, which I'm not, wouldn't I want it to be mandated to go down to the local level or the school board level? What if a bunch of these parents are all together and they say, we want this mandate? Wouldn't a mandate banning mandates essentially take away the localized government and take away the ability for people to decide on a municipal level to make these decisions on their own? How do you feel about that? What do you think?
Well, to be honest with you, at first glance, my understanding was that was at the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I was looking at it a little bit too quickly and didn't get as much of a read. But yes, ultimately, I think this is something that's better decided at the local level, at the state level. I think where we've really run into trouble is when we look to, say, Washington, D.C., or quite frankly, in any country, when we look to the whoever's version of a NHS or might be in power, or the CDC, and say, you guys give us the one size fits all. I mean, the science has moved so frequently under Anthony Fauci, and part of that, not to be rude to science, some of that is just Anthony Fauci flip flopping in the wind with regard to the United States. But for example, I'm someone who, look, I'm vaccinated. I'm not ashamed to tell people I think they should go get vaccinated. I very much get concerned about vaccine passports or vaccine mandates for a simple fact that if after this step, then what's next? Saying you can't have a job if you're not vaccinated. That someone on CNN, I hate watched it for a few minutes yesterday morning, was actually advocating that exact position. I think with masks, the science has moved so much that I'm not convinced of the effectiveness. Here's a very serious point, a little bit flippant, but it's also a serious point. Anthony Fauci, not that long ago, was telling people to wear 2 masks. Why is he not coming back and telling people to wear 2 masks now? Why is he only saying that kids 2 and up wear 1 mask? Why not wear 2 masks, as he was previously advocating? It's these types of details that nobody seems to be raising and taking issue with. I do like the fact that Senator Cruz, a former boss of mine, also my second favorite Canadian after Wayne Gretzky, is making an issue of this and pushing back against some of the overreach I've seen from the CDC. But back to your initial point, I do think this is much better decided at the local or at the state levels.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And in terms of Fauci, the mask, even his emails, he said the complete opposite. He told somebody, a personal email, he said, you don't need to wear it if you're not infected. So I think it's really weird that all those emails came out, which showed that all of his knowledge, we won't get into it, about Wuhan, and then all his flip-flopping on even on a personal level, unless he's lying to his friend. Yet they took like a week off and then they returned to him as their pundit in chief. It's really weird to me that we just brush all the stuff where he was blatantly lying about under the rug. I want to go over now to.
Well, and look,
yeah,
they treat him as, I mean, he's the exalted one. That he is medical Jesus. He is the one who's going to save us from COVID, except for the fact that he was helping to fund the lab, except when he wasn't helping to fund the lab, or bowing down to Tedros, the WHO, except when he wasn't bowing down to Tedros or even President Xi. Look, how many days in the week are there? We'll tell you how many positions Anthony Fauci has on an issue.
Yeah, and I don't want to act like I'm trying to defend him. I did videos on him. I think he's willing to say whatever he needs to say at the time to, make the interview end faster. It's the idea I get from him. I was reading your article from the Washington Times the other day. Actually, I think that must have been this morning. And there's a crazy stat in it, and we'll put it up after, but it just kind of blew my mind, and I got into like the math behind it. Your article in the Washington Times, it says 36% of President Biden's voters did not know about the laptop story, Hunter Biden, of course, and at least 4.6% of them said that they would not have voted for him had they known about it. Now, the whole article is about internet censorship, and I think everybody should read it. But I did a little bit of the math, and that's over 3.6 million votes, and that actually swings the popular vote in Trump's favor. Now, take that as you will. You'd have to break down where all those votes are. But we know some people always like to go like, well, he won the popular vote. They love doing that with Hillary. I just think that's a crazy stat. Why do you think Is there a clear-cut answer why they didn't want the Hunter Biden stuff out there? Because it still to this day comes out. You see some more hilarious photos or videos. There is that phone call he recorded himself, and shirtless in his lap on his laptop, smoking, I think meth or crack while he's on the phone with somebody. Is there a did we find out the defined reason as to why they blocked that on Twitter and everything, or is it just as we think it was, to just hide it from the voters?
Well, I mean, with regard to doing a little meth while you're on a phone call, I mean, who among us? I mean, we're not going to throw some stones here. But look, this is just very blatant. This was an effort where big tech and big media came together to say that they did not want damaging information out prior to an election. And to be clear here, look, I realize that Hunter Biden has had some very serious issues with substance abuse and some other. When you see about his relationship with his father, it's actually it's pretty sad to watch, to see some of it. But here's the let's put that aside for a moment. It's the Biden family corruption. It's going back to the swamp. It's going back to the elites. It's going back to the establishment, that if you're born into a certain name, that if you've gone to a certain school, that things magically fall your way. It's the exact same reason why President Trump won in 2016, because he was taking on the powers that be. And so, for example, when you look at the Clinton Global Initiative and the way that that blew back on Crooked Hillary in 2016, you look at the Biden Family Inc. This is a half century of grift, not just from Hunter, but from James and Frank, the president's brothers, they've spent the last half century just making money selling access. And it shows you exactly what's going to, I mean, look now, it's almost as if you could have predicted this. The fact that Hunter Biden is selling his rehab paintings for $500,000 a piece, $500,000 from basically, 1 hour therapy session that he goes and puts out there. Nobody's buying those because they just think that it's Picasso reincarnated. They're buying because they think that will help them get access to then the Biden administration. So everything that we thought was going to come true has come true. And that's why big tech and big media sat on that story. They did not want damaging info about Biden Inc., the grifting, the international corruption, the fact that Biden is compromised by everyone from the CCP to the Ukrainians to these other countries. And we've never seen something like that before. It's why I titled the op-ed, "This is the worst year for censorship in American history." Because what we've seen with whether it's shutting down talk of the Wuhan lab, or shutting down people willing to criticize Fauci, or criticizing Joe Biden and Hunter Biden at all, we've never seen censorship, coordinated censorship and political discrimination on this level.
Yeah, the big guy, they call him. You can't.
10%. 10% for the big guy.
People just have to read that stuff. It's the same thing as I mentioned with the Fauci emails. Even if you go back to the Podesta emails, if you just read the stuff, you'll have vastly more knowledge on these topics, and you'll be able to predict some of the stuff that's going to happen based on words from their own mouth. So I want to transition that to GETTR. And the last time we talked about some of the features, and I want to get to more of those in a bit. But I want to talk about when you first started it. What was like the big idea you had, or the biggest goal you had when you started GETTR from the get-go? What was like the first thing you wrote down?
First thing I wrote down is, number one, free speech, and number two, oppose cancel culture. And those are really the two principles that we started with. And this was before there was any market research or figuring out how many folks might be willing to come to a new platform. It's, we need to support free speech and oppose cancel culture. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter what political party, what your ideology. Those are really the two founding principles that I think can bring everyone together. Now you fast forward 5 weeks later, 2 million users, about half of that's in the US, half is around the country. Canada right now is our number 4 biggest country with regard to a user base. The top 3 being number 1, the US, number 2, Brazil, at about 15%, then Japan, and Canada's right behind. So Canada is going to be a very important partner for us as we talk about growth. Obviously, you look at the users per population, you see we have a very good start with regard to Canada. Couple of features we have, just waiting for the app to be approved. We'll have notifications coming soon. The live streaming is right around the corner. The online appreciation, online tipping will be coming up. And so some really cool things coming, and great folks have joined this platform. Really excited. Will be Mike Pompeo and Ben Carson, President Bolsonaro, And I think we have a couple other world leaders that are right at the cusp. We're about ready to hopefully get them on the platform, or worldwide political figures. And so that's kind of it's a fun thing. I think that I never thought that I'd be unifying the world in their opposition to big tech. And as I told you last time we had the opportunity to talk, if you're frustrated as an American that 3 billionaires in Silicon Valley are dictating your free speech rights, imagine if you live outside of the US. If you're someone who's in Canada, you're like, wait a minute, why are these 3 billionaires in Silicon Valley, a different country, tell me what my free speech rights are? It's the same sentiment all around the world. People want their self-determination, they want their political free speech, and they're tired of the political censorship.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff I was going to ask you, you just answered right there. That's really cool. I started on YouTube, I think in 2017, and I watched the algorithm change. I watched the censorship grow, and hide my content from viewers. I went from millions a month to thousands a month. And just having been on GETTR for I think less than a month now, I can tell that it's natural growth. Like, people actually see things. So I'm happy about that. I think the tips are a big thing. And I wanted to ask you if you had a plan for who you want to partner with, or who you are partnering with for payment processing. Because all the stuff that's coming out, we're going down the road now of political bias in payment processing. Do you have any news you can share on that?
So that's yes and no. The bottom line is that we actually kind of where this becomes then a profitable entity. Of course, there's the online tipping, the online appreciation, much in the same way that you give bits to someone who's on Twitch. But people used to be able to monetize, for example, their Facebook content, and they're not able to do that anymore. And we see YouTube continually keeps taking people down. We want GETTR to be a place where content creators or show hosts, folks like yourself, can go and, you know what, I can put up my episode, I can put up my my video and not have a fear of it being taken down because someone in Silicon Valley doesn't like that. And so what we're actually working through on the payment side, we have I met with my chief engineer this morning to go through some of the timelines on these things. But we actually even want to work in GETTR Pay, a direct competitor to Apple Pay and Alipay. That'll be essentially our own payment system provider. And so that's a little bit further down the road, hopefully not too much further, because as my board members keep saying, we're not running a nonprofit forever. This does need to become a profitable entity at a certain point. But you're right, every step of the way, I have to think through independence, I have to think through redundancies, I have to make sure that we're not going to be undercut or deplatformed simply because, again, some woke oligarch wakes up and says, these guys are getting a little too big for the britches, time to deplatform them.
One of the things I like that I was noticing and thinking about the other day about GETTR is that when you post, for example, this is just one of the things. For example, you post a link and a video, because a lot of the stuff when we promote on here, I post a link to the article and I post a clip from this episode, let's say, and it actually shows both. Twitter doesn't do that, so it'll show you both the video and then it'll have the article underneath. I thought that was just really cool, something I wanted to tell people about. And I also like how fast the videos upload in comparison to especially Parler, which goes super slow, and Twitter, which is still slower than GETTR. So maybe that's something people can think about. You covered pretty much anything. Any other integrations you want to tell us about that are coming, or do you think you covered? I think you covered most, like a lot of stuff.
I think that's that. And actually, you know, we've gotten some really good feedback from folks. I continue to hound on this. So my poor engineers, who I yell at all the time, I do want to get essentially a similar to as we see in the clubhouse or locker room, the ability for folks to have online audio conversations with each other is essentially an audio chat room. I really like that feature, especially if say you're a political figure and you want to do the proverbial emergency press conference, that you can just hit a button and start talking and people can pick you up live. I think that's fantastic. I also want to do a little bit more when it comes to some of the coalitions and community building, so people can join different groups. They can be part of different things that they like to follow. And of course, also, I want to get translations in there pretty soon. We're up right now. I think we're in 9 or 10 languages. I just authorized today to get moving. We'll have Italian added in a couple days, Hungarian, Polish. So we have a number of different languages that are being added. I like interacting with folks from other countries. I like reading news sources from other countries. Having that will really give people the ability to follow things that are going outside of their sphere. And again, I think there's this really great synergy with people in different countries to say, you know what, I'm America first, or I'm Canada first, or Brazil first. I believe in my right to self-determination. I believe in my country, but you know what? I like to connect with people who are just as prideful about their country and their self-determination. And I think in a counterintuitive way, in a way that the media wouldn't have thought, I'm actually seeing a lot more here in the U.S., a lot more, say, MAGA, Make America Great Again type folks who are now interested in following and learning about people in other countries than maybe ever before. And so I think there's a great way to bring the world together out of this drive for political free speech and self-determination.
Yeah, it's a really cool platform. I'm glad you're able to share all that stuff for us. And for everybody watching, he does not sponsor this show. I just like the platform. I'm open to it, though. Before I let you go, I want to talk to you about Trump. There's so many questions that come up when we talk about the job that you had. How do you get approached for a job like that? How do you get approached to say, come on board and speak directly with the president all the time and give advice to him? How does that happen?
So a couple of things here. I initially, when President Trump was thinking about running for president in 2012, it was technically in 2011, earlier on in that cycle, a former business partner of mine, or actually I guess at the time he was a current business partner still, was friends with Jared Kushner and made the introduction. And so if President Trump had won in 2012, then I would have been his campaign manager for the overall campaign. Obviously, he did not run. Mitt Romney ran, lost a race that he easily should have won. But then as President Trump went in 2016, I wasn't sure that he was going to run. Ended up, as I mentioned before, worked with Ted Cruz. Initially, he finished second. And then about a month after that race, then I got a call again from Jared Kushner saying that now President Trump would like to meet with me. He knew me from the campaign trail, didn't really knew me from years before, but didn't have a close personal relationship. I had worked for Mayor Rudy Giuliani back in 2008 when he ran for president. We didn't do particularly well. I thought I did well in his campaign, but we didn't really win. But so we had some friends in common, some commonality. And when I asked Jared that, and this is a real long answer to your short question, why are you guys calling me? Why are you interested in having me? He said, because you can adapt and you're used to working with larger than life personalities, and you know how to take your job serious but not take yourself too serious. And then he kind of said, well, and we've also tried everybody else and they haven't worked, so now we're at you. So I'm not sure which one it was. Either way, I'm very appreciative for the opportunity that Jared and then President Trump gave me. I actually spent an hour with President Trump yesterday, working him some more on trying to come over to GETTR. I think it got a little bit closer. No announcements or anything, but I'm working it. So it is kind of fun when you go back in and spend some time with President Trump. And so still in very close contact with his team. And obviously I'm going to be a loyal supporter indefinitely.
Did you guys go to dinner? Did you guys go golfing? What did you guys do?
So my golf game is pretty trifling, and his is actually pretty good, and so I stay away from that. I like to, like Sun Tzu said, fight on terrain that's good for you. So I went into his office and we just had a one-on-one meeting in his office there in Trump Tower on the 26th floor with a similar shot. He's at the other side of Central Park from where I am, so I have Central Park back behind me here, and we just spent about an hour, a little bit of catch-up stories, a couple of fun things. But I tell you, one thing on President Trump, there was no formal declaration or indication. He sounds like somebody who's running again in 2024. That's very much the takeaway that I have in my conversation with him. But again, no formal announcement. But boy, he sounds like someone who plans on running again.
Wow. Okay. I also wanted to ask you. You were in a position to give advice to the president. Was there any time or any topic where he came to you for advisement? Is there any time or topic where he came to you for advice on something really huge and really crazy, and you're thinking, I can't believe I'm in this position where I get to advise the president on this? Do you have any story you can share about something like that?
I would say, you know what, I'd say with President Trump, part of the relationship is I would always put ideas up in front of him. And President Trump, I think this is one of the things people don't understand or might not realize, is he's actually a very good listener. If you're someone if President Trump says, what do you think about saying something in this fashion or taking this course of action? he is open to people disagreeing with him or pushing back, as long as you have, as long as you understand what he's trying to accomplish, and you say, here's another way you can effectively accomplish this goal. So there are numerous times where I would offer, say, an alternative direction or maybe some pushback, or work with him, and plenty of times where he would just say, no, I think your answer's wrong, or this sounds like the stupid Washington way of doing things, and you just have to smile and, okay, well, I swing and a miss on that one. No, but he's willing to listen, and he'll a lot of times he'll take your advice. I would say that probably one of the most consequential conversations where I helped out was probably the night of January 6th. And as I worked with President Trump and the First Lady Melania Trump to craft the statement that President Trump put out that evening, after Joe Biden was formally announced as the winner of the presidential race when the electoral votes were counted. And I think at the time I realized how big of a, concerning what everything that happened that day, just as big of a momentous occasion that was. At the time, I realized a little bit that we were at that was a moment for the history books, or in President Trump's case, a moment for the 36 post-presidency books that seem to be coming out every week. So that was an example of a time where I was kind of right there. But a lot of times on these things, you don't realize how big it is until later. But you can't blink and you can't be shy. President Trump's orbit is not one for wallflowers. If you're in the room, you're expected to have an opinion. And if you can't offer an opinion and back up with the reason why, then he probably won't have you back in the room again.
I always thought that the Trump team during the presidency was really good at connecting with influencers. And I don't mean like what they did the other day with this guy in a dress with long nails going to the White House, but I mean like actual cool people like Dana White and the UFC fighters. I don't know if you remember the YouTubers Nelk, who he brought on stage, and I think it was in Florida, to dance with him. Who is responsible for vetting that sort of stuff? Because I think they did a really good job while he was in office.
You know what? There are a million different entry points kind of into the Trump orbit. Sometimes something might be from the OPL, the Office of Public Liaison. Those might be some of the more business people. Jared Kushner was a frequent conduit or entry point for, say, kind of people in the celebrity space. But, if you're someone who the president trusts and you've brought ideas to him, so, for example, Katrina Pearson, someone who handled a lot of our African-American community outreach. I think she was the one who brought to us Lil Pump, one of the rappers that came on stage during the president's final speech in Pennsylvania, or next to the final speech in Pennsylvania, as we're flying around in 2020. If President Trump trusts your judgment and thinks that you're going to bring good people into the orbit, there are a number of different entry points, but there's a certain fun factor with President Trump that's different. People don't view him, even today, they don't view him as the politician. He has his own unique brand, and that's so many people from different walks of life. I'll tell you one final thing on this moment. I had an opportunity once. It was at our one of our events in Georgia, where President Trump was backstage with Herschel Walker, of course, the all-star running back for the Georgia Bulldogs in college, and the New Jersey Generals for the USFL team that President Trump owned, and then the Cowboys and the Vikings. And seeing those two men who've literally been friends for 35 years just hang out and kind of shoot the breeze with each other, talking about football and different things, two completely different walks of life. And just watching the way that they would interact, it was literally as if his two college buddies getting back together a few decades later. And people don't realize that President Trump is very approachable, and he's a human being too. And he has his friends, and he's very loyal. And so watching some of those interactions were pretty fascinating.
Jason, the last thing I want to ask you about, and you've given so much great content already. I'm not sure if you're allowed to talk about this. The silly leaks that would come out of the administration, the ones that were obviously, in my opinion, I'll say, were done on purpose to find out who the person was doing, to find out which person was doing it. One of them that I remember was something about Trump watching a gorilla channel, and and all these sorts of crazy things, where I would read the article and I'd be like, come on, like that's something that you send out to people, and you send out people different things, and you see which one gets out into the media. Was that a big concern that was going on at the time? And how did that get weeded out? Is it what I think it was, or are you even allowed to talk about that?
No, it's look. I think they call it in spy world a blue dye test, where you go and dump in the blue dye and see where it comes out on the other end. I think early in the administration that was an issue, not later in the administration. I think by the time the president got to the last year or so of his administration, you really had a good sense of commonality. Really had a sense of people come together, kind of a focused point of mission. And look, a lot of it. Here's one thing that people don't realize: sometimes these weren't necessarily intentional leaks where people are trying to quote unquote take someone out. It could be one person repeats it to another person who accidentally says it too loud on a metro bus and somebody else hears it. You'd be surprised sometimes. Or the other thing too, keep in mind that you have in Washington, you have snipers that are shooting at you from angles you don't even know. So, say for example, Peter Navarro, who was in the Office of Trade and in the American Worker, or Buy American, Hire American, rather. He asked me once who had pushed a negative story on him. I said, Peter, do you realize that the entire country of China, who you're pushing for tariffs on, has a reason to be upset with you? Literally, a country of 1.4 billion people who are that motivated. And if you have that country like that, of course, they have business interests here. There are corporations you've never even heard of, Peter, who are going to look to try to push negative stories on you or try to beat you up just because of a business interest or some kind. And so, again, that wasn't, Peter was asking me if was there someone else in the administration trying to take aim at him. I go, Peter, you have entire countries who are upset with you. Don't think that it's some jabroni deputy assistant secretary to the nobody down in the basement. It could be a big powerful player with billions of capital behind him.
It's crazy the stuff you must have had to deal with, and I think you guys did a great job with that. Not to be a butt kisser, but like I said, with the influencers and just the whole feel of it, I think was just what so many people latched onto, whether it was Dana White, YouTube influencers, UFC fighters who are against communism, that sort of thing. Thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks for the inside information and all the stuff on GETTR. Is there anything else you want to say before we let you go?
No, thank you very much. Appreciate your being on GETTR. Look forward to continuing to push and promote what you guys are doing. Some exciting new features that are coming soon. Look forward to also now that Americans are being allowed back into Canada, or at least that's what the announcement that I saw this week. I hope to be up to visit soon. We have a lot of great supporters, a lot of great allies in Canada. In fact, one of my favorite, Mission is Great, which is a great GETTR account. My friend Doug, he's a good follow on GETTR. So we have some really cool Canadian supporters, and just keep on growing and expanding.
Yeah, if you come to Toronto, come to the studio. We'll give you all the free snacks that Rebel News has to offer. It's a big selling point of this office. Thanks a lot, Jason. Go to GETTR.com, you guys, and of course, read his article that we mentioned there in Washington Times. Thanks a lot, Jason.
Thanks again.